Hey, what's going on guys? Ryze Stealth here, and in today's video, I'm going to give you my opinion on the best top lane champions for Season 4, patch 4.17. First up, I have Rumble, and I don't just have Rumble on my list because he's seen a lot of play in competitive lately. He's been picked up at Worlds a lot, but Rumble is actually a really strong pick for solo queue as well because his ultimate is super strong. He's a really good lane bully. He actually counters Ryze pretty hard because if Ryze tries to Q Rumble, he can just use his shield and negate most of the damage from his Q, if not all of it. He's a really good team fighter because of his ultimate, and if you can find fights in the jungle, then that's where Rumble is at his best because his ultimate can just lock down an entire spot and it will just shred the enemies if you can find fights there. He has amazing pick potential with his ultimate because it's actually got a really long range on it. He has a super strong mid game. Once you pick up Leandries on Rumble, it gives him a really big power spike. He has good engage and disengage with his ultimate, and he's pretty hard to tower dive because of his ultimate. He's got a short cooldown shield, so he can just be spamming that and just stay healthy and negate a lot of poke because of that. And he is still useful when behind because he can use his ultimate to engage fights, he can use it to disengage, and he's all around a pretty strong champion right now. But cons to Rumble are his ult is crucial and it can be hard to land. I would recommend practicing Rumble in some normal games before you head into ranked if you're not very confident on him, because landing his ultimate is key, and if you can't land it, then he's not a very strong champion. So practice Rumble and make sure you can get good at landing your ultimates because then he will become a really strong champion for you. So next up I have Lulu. Pros to Lulu are she has great utility. Pretty much all of her abilities have some sort of utility in them. She's got a polymorph, a shield, her ultimate gives HP, she has a slow on her Q. She is strong against melee champions because she can just bully them with her Q and it's really hard for them to jump on her. She's hard to tower dive, especially when she hits level 6 because she's got her ultimate, her polymorph, her shield, her slow, and it just makes for a disaster if you're trying to dive a Lulu. She has really good peel, she has insane CC, and she has a very safe laning phase because it's really hard to gank a Lulu because if you try to come in and gank her, she can just polymorph you, slow you, she can pop her shield, she can pop her speed boost, so it's hard to gank a Lulu unless she's pushed all the way up into the enemy's tower. She's useful when behind as well because she has so much utility, and she has good mobility as well with her speed boost. Cons to Lulu are she doesn't do a lot of damage, so she somewhat has to rely on her teammates for damage. If she does get ahead, then she can do quite a bit of damage, but if she just goes even in lane and doesn't win lane and get her items quickly, then she won't be doing too much damage. She's also quite squishy, so you gotta be careful about your positioning as Lulu and make sure you're not getting chunked down in team fights or getting caught out because you will die really quickly. Next up, I have Irelia. Pros to Irelia are she has a 2-second stun, which is really insane because if you can jump on the enemy AD carry and stun them for 2 seconds, they're going to be dead in an instant and they won't be able to fight back at all. She has good Triforce synergy because of the movement speed from the Phage and also all the Sheen procs that she can get from her abilities. She's a great duelist. She has really good sustain in lane with her W. She has good sticking power with her Q and her E. And she has a short cooldown ult, so if you need to, you can use that to clear waves. She scales really well into the late game because she can only needs really 2 damage items and then she can go full tank from there, and she can be a monster because of that. And she also counters Nidalee's split pushing because she pretty much outduels a Nidalee, so if you're looking for someone to counter Nidalee's annoying split pushing, then pick Irelia. Cons to Irelia are she is very weak when behind because she doesn't really have any sort of CC like a Rumble, or she doesn't really have utility like a Lulu does. Her ultimate does crap damage, to be honest, and it doesn't really serve a purpose other than clearing waves or getting a little bit of poke off. Her stun also only works if her opponent has more percentage health than you, which is kind of annoying, but it also gives a pretty good slow as well, so you'll be able to stick to your opponent nevertheless. Next up, I have Ryze, and it seems like for the past 3 or 4 tier lists, he's just been sneaking up on my list. I think I started him at number 5 a few ago, and he's just moved up from there. Pros to Ryze are he has great poke with his Q, he has short cooldown abilities, he can build tanky and still do so much damage because he scales with mana, and he can build mana items that are also defensive like Frozen Heart. He scales insane into the late game, and it's really hard to duel a Ryze late game. He's one of the he is the tankiest mage in the game, and he can 1v1 pretty much any other mage come full build Ryze. He has a point and click snare, which is really strong for team fighting and just locking down your opponent. He's got great wave clear late game with his ultimate because it's on a 30-second cooldown if I'm not mistaken, and you can just use that to clear waves really easily. He's super easy to play as all of his abilities are point and click, and he never runs low on mana late game, so you don't have to worry about going back to base and grabbing some mana because he builds mana items, so you don't have to worry about that. Cons to Ryze are he is mana hungry early game, so be careful about spamming your Q in lane. And he's also very squishy early, so you have to be careful. You don't want to get shut down as Ryze early game because you need your items and you need to scale your tier and your rod, so just be careful. Make sure you're not pushing up to the enemy tower with no vision, because if you get shut down as Ryze, it's going to be hard to catch back up. So last but not least, I have Maokai, and he's been number 1 for the last 2 or 3 tier lists, I'm pretty sure, and he definitely deserves this spot in my opinion. Pros to Maokai are he has insane CC, all of his abilities except for his ultimate have some sort of CC built into them. He's got really strong peel with his W and his E, as well as his Q. He has good engage with his W. He has a really strong ultimate because it gives his teammates 20% reduced damage, and that's just really insane. He's super tanky come late game. He does a fair bit amount of damage for being so tanky. Once you pick up the Rod of Ages, you actually do quite a bit of damage, so you can duel a lot of champions because of that. He's an AD carry's best friend because if an AD carry gets caught out by, say, a Leona ultimate or say by a Leona E, just for example, then Maokai can jump on the Leona. He can E her, he can Q her, and just get whoever is jumping on his AD carry off really quickly. He has a very strong mid/late game, and he's super hard to dive because of the reduced damage and because of all of his CC. Cons to Maokai are he doesn't have any mobility, so be careful about pushing up in lane without any vision. And he does have lower damage compared to other picks like Ryze and Irelia and Rumble, so you do have to somewhat rely on your teammates to pull out the damage, but because he's got such good peel, then he can make sure that he keeps his damage dealers alive during team fights. So honorable mentions for this patch include Nidalee, Wukong, and Jarvan. Nidalee received some pretty big nerfs in the recent patch, and her ability to bully in lane got reduced a lot. Her base damage on her auto attacks got reduced by quite a bit, and she's still a strong pick, but not in the top 5 in my opinion. Wukong, if you can survive laning phase and get your items on Wukong, then his team fighting presence is super strong, and if you can get a good ultimate off in a team fight, you're probably going to win that team fight most of the time. And Jarvan, if you're not playing him in the jungle, then he's also a really strong top lane. He's got a super strong early game because of his passive and his EQ combo, and he can really catch enemies off guard with how much damage that he can do early game. So that is all for the video, guys. If you enjoyed, then be sure to like and subscribe, and as always, if you are wondering why I didn't include a certain champion on this list, then be sure to comment below asking me why, and I'll get back to you on that. But as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you in my next video.